with Asia as a growth region and Singapore as a financial hub, how should organizations or corporations here shape up the game in a competition for international capital? And specifically, do you see any difference between what investors in the West versus Asia expect of IR programs?
Let me give you a very simple and easy to remember rule of thumb about what's important in investor relations. And this may be kind of IR 101 for many people, but I'll offer it up. This is based on more than 20 years of asking investors and analysts, what do you want in terms of investor relations? And there's 5 elements, and I say T for transparency, R for responsiveness, A for access, C for consistency, and K for knowledge. So track, this is my rule of good IR, T-R-A-C-K. However, I've changed one of the elements this year. I believe that something I call customer service, responsiveness is part of it, but it's more than that. In terms of differences between the West and Singapore, according to our latest survey of IR practices worldwide, Asian IR departments in general, across the board, small and large cap, actually have the largest team sizes, the largest average team size in the world, but the smallest budgets. Asian companies also spend less on outside IR services than their counterparts overseas. Salaries, I'm sorry to say, are lower here than for the peers in North America and Europe for IR professionals. IR professionals here, on average, are getting paid less than half of what they're getting paid in the U.S. And it should be more. The fact is that
thank you.
and partly this is not that the people with the same skills or the same experience are getting paid less than they should be. It's how the function is staffed as well, remember? So what we're seeing in the States is that the people in the IR position have more experience, have better skills, better qualifications.
You have specialists in the West. Very rarely you find an analyst in the West covering more than one sector. They cover one sector, they cover that sector very well. All right? Here, they have to cover more sectors. They cover 3 sectors. They are specialists in the West, and we are not finding that kind of specialist IROs here. As we progress, we need to specialize and we need to professionalize. There must be more professionalism in this industry. So with that, I think you will improve the image and the standing of IROs. And then you can demand for more money.
I think knowledge of your organization, the industry and the market that your organization operates in, the competitive landscape, those are very important ingredients. Because when you speak to investors, whether it's institutional or retail, they generally don't want to say, why did this thing increase by so much, in terms of financial statements. They like to see how is your organization doing? How is your company doing, right? How is your company going to grow, right? So in order to be able to speak convincingly to the investor, you have to know such things. Another good practice is really, before you meet an investor, go back and find out when was the last time you met the investor. What questions did he ask or she ask? It's all about preparing yourself to meet someone, right? And that's, to me, is not something that just IRO should do. Every one of us in any profession should do. Lastly, is just more the discipline of getting back to people when there are questions. Whether if the question comes in from the website or the question comes in from a one-to-one, it's always good to get back. And it goes back to what Neil was saying about customer service, right? I mean,
in Hong Kong last week at our conference, Gary Ng from Lenovo, an award winner there, he told me over lunch that when his daughter asks him, "What do you do, Dad? What is investor relations?" He says, "I'm a salesman, but what I'm selling is not a product or service. I'm selling credibility."
I may sort of put on my other hat as an IRO. I think, just sharing experience. I think it's very important after every meeting. Well, first of all, if you're going to do a non-deal roadshow or a conference, make sure you tell the sell side analyst that you want feedback from him. So if he doesn't give you a feedback within a week, hound him for it. We actually locked it in CapitaLand, so we have a trail, and together with that, we actually have a chart which shows because we track the shareholding every quarterly. But sometimes you can actually relate his price action to something that's happened. Maybe he asked you a question and he didn't get the answer he looked for. He just didn't feel right. So I think that's important. And then I think if you can sort of bring that to attention of management before you next meet this investor, I think it helps to prepare the management in a...
Investors, retail investors are becoming discerning,
Yep.
and companies are coming to SIS to help resolve issues. We sip tea behind closed doors and we resolve issues, and we have done that since 1999. All right? So IROs who are here, investor relations managers, must realize that there is a vehicle, there is a conduit that you can use, and that is SIS, to resolve all issues. And I think if you do that, then you'll win the trust and confidence of the retail investors.
We move on to something that's, I know is very close to New's heart, which is actually, embracing social media. You'd like to share some of your experience?
I'm more of an observer and often a critic as well in terms of social media use for investor relations. But I'm very interested in following what companies are doing and seeing some companies do it well. That it's no longer a question of if for investor relations, of if we should use social media. It's a question of when. The financial community is about to go over the tipping point in terms of the use of social media. Once the financial community goes, there's no going back. It's coming, and it's coming fast. It's coming really fast. So I think we can see the way many companies are doing this very well. They're doing even, they're using it to engage with stakeholders and with investors. The conversation is happening with or without you. You should at least get in on it. You should at least, don't let someone else control the conversation about your company. So you have to kind of lay claim to your identity in the social media world.
Neil, are there any concrete results? Because David mentioned about, there is a premium established, for good IR functions and all that. Can you substantiate that?
We have ourselves looked at our award winners and created an index and tracked the performance, and we do see an outperformance, from year to year, by a recognizable margin. In some ways, it could be a little bit of a red herring, in that we could find it, but does it really teach us something? Does it really tell us something? We know in our heart that trust and transparency and the confidence of investors help you through so many phases of your life cycle as a public company.
We've started putting on our website the performance of companies that win awards from SIS and the industry partners on corporate governance and transparency. And we do a research. We have done research on these companies, and we've given them ratings on how they performed. And SKBI has come up with the research findings that these award-winning companies actually performed very well in the stock market. The share price is quite, encouraging.
We've also identified that they bounce back more quickly after a decline.
Right.
So, for example, we measured this. We saw this after the financial crisis in late 2008. We looked at how the better performing companies in our survey of IR bounce back compared to less well-rated companies.
What I like to add also is the point that IR is not a function that is just done for today, for this year, and therefore for this year's results alone, but it is a function that has got long-term implications, because as long as a company will in the future go to the market to raise capital, whether it's debt capital or equity capital, investors will start to reflect upon what the company had communicated in the past. Yeah. And that is where the benefits will start to come down the road.
I'd like to wrap up the day. I hope you all found the panel session of value. And please join me in showing appreciation to our panelists.